So the new Avatar: The Last Airbender live action Netflix series is out, and I've watched the entire first season that covers book 1 of the original show, and in this video, I'm going to give my review on this show and give my opinions and decide if this show is better or worse than the terrible live action movie adaptation of the animated show. I'm also going to decide if this show is a faithful adaptation to the animated show and if this show stands on its own 2 feet. And don't worry, I'm not going to reveal any spoilers as this show had just come out and not everybody can watch it quickly like I did. So with that being said, let's get right into the review.
Right.
Now, I want to get the positive things I have to say about this show first, so let's just get that out of the way. In terms of characters, for me, for the most part, they did a great job being loyal to the OG show characters, but they also stand on their own in my opinion. There were major changes made to Aang that kinda takes away from his character a little bit, but still, he's an enjoyable protagonist and much more faithful and loyal than the movie Aang version that we've got. I'm also very, very happy that Sokka was actually given a good adaptation. The movie version of Sokka was just... my god, it's just terrible, it's just awful, so I'm just glad this show does Sokka complete justice. The acting in this show is pretty solid. I think the actors for Zuko, Iroh, and Sokka stand out the most, as I think they are the best actors. The actor for Aang is pretty solid, but I do not think he stands out like Sokka, Iroh, or Zuko though. Everyone's acting is not super groundbreaking, but it's not terrible either. Overall, the acting is very solid. The set designs for this series are honestly beautiful. They're very amazing. The settings for these episodes look absolutely stunning, and it really speaks volumes for the world we're in. The costumes, props, and everything just look great. I think the fight choreography and the cinematography for this show is amazing too. They're super entertaining to watch. The special effects for the bending are done mostly well. The effects and just the movements are amazing, and it's crazy that the visual effects in this series are much better than the movie adaptation, considering the film has over a budget of $150 million compared to the Netflix series that has a little over $100 million for its budget. I think the writing in the show is pretty decent. It's not completely terrible, but it's not the greatest either. I would say it's just somewhat average. I also like how this show presents some dark stuff like burned bodies and blood and things like that, which was pretty surprising to me. It actually helps highlight how brutal the villain Ozai is in this show. And I really like how the show constantly revolves around the theme of war and how this show keeps throwing Aang back to his mistakes and his faults, and that he constantly relives them and continues being confronted by the mistake he has made in the past, as if he could never be forgiven for it. The constant theme of war and running away from your past self is entertaining to watch, to say the least. So those are the positive things I had to say about this show. Now let's get into some of the negatives and some complaints that I have for this series. I said the acting was good, but I haven't touched upon the chemistry between the main trio, and it's just not there. Honestly, they don't really feel like a group of friends to me. They just feel like comrades or allies going on missions instead of friends going on adventures. At one point, I felt like Sokka, who was part of the main trio, had more of a friendship and more of a relationship with 2 certain characters that he's been with for like 2 episodes than with Aang and Katara, who he's been with for this whole series. Out of the main trio, Katara is the weakest character to me. There has been development with her throughout this show, but I don't really feel it, which also kind of ties into my next point where this show loves to tell and not show, which is bad for a major motion picture film or series. Like, constantly, whatever the character feels, whether they're upset, mad, or whatever, they just instantly say that they are, which is why I think I don't feel much whenever Katara or other characters go through moments where they're supposed to be emotional and heartfelt, because they just say how they feel and how painful it is. It just takes me out of that moment, and we don't really feel that same pain that they're supposed to feel because they just say it out loud. It just does not carry the same weight as feeling it emotionally. The pacing in this show is kinda weird to me. While we do go to many new places, and in a lot of ways we actually get to explore the world and expand on the world of The Last Airbender, but it always feels like we need to be on the move on, and so much is happening that we don't get proper build up to some things, which can take away some of the suspense or surprise. And because of that, it feels like the whole writing of the show feels somewhat rushed. The entire plot is the same from the animated series. In terms of adapting the show, it changes so many things. Yes, the story is the same, but the development of the story is so different, and it's so obvious this show tries to be its own natural thing, which I actually kind of like, and it's something that I think live action adaptations should do. But because of the pacing, some of the major plot points in this show don't really feel like a huge problem or a climax. It doesn't feel like we should be surprised or worried or even care about anything, which hinders the writing of this show in my eyes, because the narrative is building up to these major points, which will also become pretty major later in the series. In terms of special effects, my main problem is the green screen. Like, whenever we see the characters riding on Appa, this is what we get like every single time, and it looks so bad. Like, it's so obvious it's green screen, it just kind of takes me out of the show. I do have a couple of other nitpicks, like, to keep spoilers out, one of Zuko's main quotes is not present in this show, and for the first like 10 minutes of the first episode, Aang being able to fly on his glider already did bother me, as in the show, or the original show, it's a major important thing to learn, but I'm not going to spoil on that, because if they do decide to touch up on that again later, then I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, as far as I can think of, these are my main issues with the show. Overall, I had a fun time watching this show. Is this show more loyal than the movies? Yes, 100% yes. This show is more respectful and loyal to the animated show than the movies. As an adaptation of the show, I would say it's like a 50-50. This show does its best to respect the original source material while also trying to be its own thing, and it's kind of struggling to balance that out and stand on its own 2 feet, but in my eyes, I think it does a great job on that. Overall, I'm going to give Avatar: The Last Airbender Netflix series a solid 7 out of 10. I think it's a very fun watch. But if you're someone who wants to get into the Last Airbender series, watch the original animated show. You'll have a much greater experience than this Netflix show. The original animated show is just so much better in terms of storytelling and characters. Anyways, that's going to be it for my review. If you have watched the show, let me know your thoughts on it and how you feel about it, and how you feel about my review of the show. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!